This screencast is an introduction to the novel The Knife of Never Letting Go by Patrick Ness. It's aimed at teaching later this year to a class of 13-year-olds, all boys as it happens, which seems particularly apt, as those of you listening to this will find out once you start reading the novel. So, without further ado, let me just take you through the slides. This screencast is aimed to be a stimulus, something to get your thoughts going prior to the reading of the novel and the work we will have to do on what is actually quite a long, though absolutely wonderful book. First of all, a couple of things for you to think about. Imagine a world in which your thoughts could be heard by everyone. Your thoughts, every single thought that goes through your mind, even the one that's going through it at the moment saying, "What the hell is Peel talking about?" Just do it. But then, because we need to do this, we need to make it work, I'd like you to make some notes as you listen to this cast. What thoughts actually are striking you as you read that statement? Write them down. Try to think which of them would be good, which of them would be bad in this imaginary world where everything is audible. At the foot of the page, I've included a little picture here where there's a section of the book, a page from the book, in which Patrick Ness has tried to put into writing form the huge jumble of thoughts that might be present in any room at any given time. Start to think about it and actually consciously make yourself a list. What would be good? What would be bad about this world? When you've done it, move to the next slide. Now on this slide, I'm going to give you another imaginary problem. Imagine growing up in a world where there are no women and where you are the youngest child in the world. You're about 13 years old. Think again what thoughts are now going through your mind. What questions, perhaps, are going through your mind as a result of this idea. Again, write them down. What would be good? What would be bad? You'll notice, incidentally, that in the bottom right-hand corner, whilst there might be no women anywhere in this world, you do have a friend. Anyway, back to your list. It's always good to find out a bit about the author of the book you're reading, and in this case the author, a man called Patrick Ness. I won't waste your time by talking to you for ages. I suggest you go to his website, the link is here, and find out a bit more about him, read a bit about him. For those of you who are really keen, you could even follow him on Twitter if you go to these pages. Every book, every story, every play, everything we read has a protagonist, the main character in a drama or other literary work. The word comes from ancient Greek, you needn't worry too much about it. And in this book, the principal character is a boy called Todd Hewitt. I wonder whether that name is significant. I wonder whether any of you have any thoughts as you read that name. Names are always chosen by a writer. I wonder why he chose Todd as the forename of this character. He lives in a town called Prentisstown. The spelling of Prentisstown might give you a clue as to where its name comes from. And we learn after a shortish while that this is a settlement in the New World. This book is a science fiction book, really. It's a book exploring the way we as humans relate to each other, but it is set somewhere in the future on some unnamed new world. The book explores a variety of ideas. One of the main ideas probably is that of love. And I've listed here various types of love. The love of a parent for a child and the children for parents. The romantic love, usually between adults. Love and friendship. I wonder what the difference between those two is. But also this idea, we've talked to it before, and it's very common as a sort of an idiomatic phrase, the idea of a love-hate relationship. Pause for a minute and actually just think for an idea what the differences are, where we are in this world. What is it about passion, which means it can be both positive, love, and negative, hate, but is still a passion? Think about that for a moment. Then we'll pick up the theme of innocence and experience. Think now, maybe jot a few things down on the page. What do you think these ideas mean? What ages tend to be innocent? Likewise, when does innocence become experience in terms of age? As you think about that, you might like to have a look at this Wikipedia page. I very rarely suggest Wikipedia to my students, but in this case it seems to be a perfectly good page and something quite appropriate. If Todd is about to become an adult, he may well have to undergo some form of rite of passage. Equally, so might you at some point in your lives. What rites of passage still exist in our societies at a range of ages, and what do they signify? Why do they form part of the cultures that we live in? As you think about that, you begin to think more clearly about the idea of innocence and experience. You might even let your imagination wander a bit and begin to consider what aspects of life, what aspects even of religious belief perhaps, tie in with this idea of innocence and experience. As we move on, I want to just address one more thing before we start, and that's the idea of what's called intertextuality. Now, this isn't actually as complicated as it sounds. Intertextuality is the technical term used for a technique in which writers use deliberate references to other well-known works in order to put ideas into the mind of the readers. And in this case, there are probably two key works that are of interest to us. They're both by Shakespeare. The first one is the play The Tempest, and there's this quotation here by a character named Miranda, a young girl who looks out onto a strange land on which she has been shipwrecked and calls out, "Oh wonder, how many goodly creatures are there here, how beauteous mankind is, oh brave new world that has such people in it." I've cut off the response of Prospero, the elderly magician who lives on the island that Miranda finds herself on, because his comment, of course, refers to the fact that she might think that, but she doesn't know this country well. Now, from Miranda, whose forename actually means wondering in Latin, there is this sense that because it's new, it must be good. Prospero is the voice of experience. He's the voice that is able to say, yes, but what actually does lie beneath? Much the same idea is seen in the character of Viola, who is the female protagonist of this novel, but is also the protagonist of Shakespeare's play Twelfth Night. Just as Miranda, she too is shipwrecked, this is the Shakespeare character, separated from her family and forced to disguise herself in order to remain safe. It would be a good idea, I think, at this point for you to look up the plots of the two plays, possibly in the web link that I've put on here, and to actually consciously make a list of what you think are the links, particularly in plot, between the two plays. Ness has obviously used references to these plays in the writing of this text. He has used other references. One of the characters, for example, is Aaron. He is the preacher of Prentisstown. And for anybody with a knowledge of the Old Testament, Aaron, who was the high priest, if you like, in opposition to Moses at the time that the Israelites were leaving Egypt and marching to set up essentially the state of Israel. We have ideas about the character because of the choice of name. And when we come to him in the text, we will do more work on this. At this point, as I say, try to find out the ideas that you think link The Tempest and Twelfth Night, maybe the characters of Miranda and Viola, and then you'll have a pretty good idea already of some of the things that you think are liable to be found in this text. Once you've done that and the other tasks in this screencast, then we'll be ready to start. This is a wonderful book, and I really hope we enjoy reading it together, because I think it's one of the finest books I've read in the last few years. Have fun.